hiking above the Nolichucky River this morning. I left Uncle Johnny's hostel probably about 15-20 minutes ago, and that's where I spent the night. I'm glad I chose to stay there. When I got in, they told me about the complimentary shuttles that go into town. So me and other hikers that were there took the 5:30 shuttle in, and I had a nice Mexican dinner, and then walked over to the Walmart and did a resupply, and the shuttle picked everybody up there and brought us back to the hostel. And then I did laundry and went to sleep. Today I plan to end up at Cherry Gap Shelter, and it's a little more than 16 miles ahead of me. Passing through Curly Maple Gap. Heading down to Indian Grave Gap, and I believe that's the third gap I've hit on this trail that's by that name. First one I believe was back in Georgia, and then the second one was in the Smokies. Making the climb out of Indian Grave Gap, and there was a gentleman there with his dog Moses, serving drinks, fruit, brownies, things like that. Some trail magic. So I had some lemonade. Man, that was good. Didn't even know I wanted it. Power lines. I'm heading up to the top of this grassy bald, and it's called Beauty Spot, and it's at 4,436 feet. And it's right up there. Here's what it looks like from the top of Beauty Spot. way down beauty spot, and that mountain behind me, that's Unica Mountain. That's the one I'm going up next, about 3.2 miles away. Passing through Beauty Spot Gap. This is the top of Unica Mountain at 5,183 feet, and the entire top is just covered with these spruce and fir trees. First view of the day. It's just a spot off the side of the trail, about 1.5 miles up from Cherry Gap Shelter, where I camped last night. I just passed through Iron Mountain Gap. This is the top of Iron Mountain, 4,341 feet. Heading down Iron Mountain, and I was just checking the map to see what's ahead of me for today. And it looks like I'm going to end my day above 6,000 feet. There's a shelter about 11 miles up. The Roan High Knob Shelter. That's the AT's highest shelter at 6,249 feet. And it seems like a pretty cool place to stay. But just before that is an old hotel site, and it's just now an open meadow on Roan Mountain, and it's just 50 feet less in elevation than the shelter, but that also looks like a pretty cool place to spend the night. check it out when I get there. Passing through Grassy Creek Gap. Grassy. Coming up on Little Rock Knob Vista, 4,822 feet. Nice. I never get tired of this. Hughes Gap. Ash Gap and just filled up on water here. It's the last water source that I'll pass before I get to the old hotel site, and that's about 1.3 miles ahead. So pretty sure I'm going to camp there, so I want to make sure I've got water for tonight. I'm at the site of the old Cloudland Hotel that was here in the late 1800s on Roan Mountain. And I'm going to set up my tent right there. And have a great view this evening at 6,199 feet. Leaving the old Cloudland Hotel site, and I've got quite a day ahead of me. A lot of stuff happening today. I've got 4 summits couple of them at 5,800 feet, and a couple of them around 5,500, I think. And one of the other things is I'll leave North Carolina for good on the trail and enter Tennessee. And pretty much ever since the Smokies, the trail's been in and out of North Carolina and Tennessee. It's pretty much just followed the border this whole time. But I think up around about 13 miles ahead of me right now is Doll Flats, and that's where you leave North Carolina. Passing through Carver's Gap. At 5,806 feet, this is the top of Round Bald. And the next mountain, just 0.7 away, is Jane Bald. That's at 5,807 feet, and it's right in the middle. That's Round Bald behind me. At the top of Jane Bald. It's so cool. The top of that mountain behind me, that's Grassy Ridge Bald. The trail doesn't go over it. In fact, to get to it, you have to take a 0.6 mile side trail. I'm going to consider that my bonus summit for today. I mean, how can I pass that up? It's over 6,000 feet, and it's right there. So why not, right? This is the summit of Grassy Ridge Bald at 6,164 feet. Glad I noticed this. Back when I was on Jane Bald, I might have just passed it up. Well worth the extra 1.2 miles to come up here and then back to the trail. Passing through Yellow Mountain Gap and only 1.6 miles away from my next summit. Making the climb out of Yellow Mountain Gap, and I look back and get a pretty good view up here. You can also see the Over Mountain Shelter. That is the top of Little Hump Mountain behind me. And I'll be up there in just another half a mile. And in 2.6 miles, I'll actually summit the slightly taller Hump Mountain. And being that today is Wednesday, I'm summiting both Hump Mountains on Hump Day. At the top of Little Hump, 5,421 feet. And that is, I guess you could say, Big Hump. Just passed through Bradley Gap and make my way to the top of Hump Mountain, my fifth and final summit for today. This is the top of Hump Mountain at 5,558 feet. And there is Little Hump where I just came from. I am inside the Doll Flats. This is where I say goodbye to North Carolina. 2 states down. Hiking along US 19E, heading towards the Mountain Harbour B&B, and I believe they have a hostel there. I'm going to check into that and see about staying there tonight. And it's only 0.3 miles off the trail.